Hello, I'm with Stephan Dreyer, who is the Managing Director of the Association of National Numbering Agencies, also known as ANNA. And Stephan, it's been quite the year for you. 2025, key milestones and achievements.
Hi, Julia. Yes, it's been a super busy year, whirlwind year. We've had some fantastic developments. We had a significant increase in our membership, reaching 125 members and partners, so 120 members and 5 new partners, really expanding our geographical reach. We continue to be very involved with the industry in the discussions around the role of standards in the transformation of the capital markets. We do probably every 2 or 3 weeks, we participate in significant events where we're trying to raise the awareness around the existence of standards and how they can benefit industry and organizations with the work that they're doing on key topics like digital assets, as we see more implementation of blockchain and DLT technology. The work that we have done over the last few years, both on expanding the role of ISIN in digital assets and the work that we do together with the Digital Token Identifier Foundation, with the Digital Token Identifier Standard, bring those together as a market solution.
And this is exactly what the industry is talking about right now in the move to tokenization, the impact of blockchain and the evolution of blockchain, and then also thinking about digital assets as well. And you mentioned every 2 to 3 weeks you're on the road, but in addition to that, you had 2 major general meetings this year. So I'm really curious, what was on the agenda for that? What came out of that discussion?
Yes, we've had 2 wonderful general meetings this year, one in June in Split, Croatia, and in December in Muscat, Oman, which was the first ever ANNA general meeting in a GCC country. So that was a significant highlight. Very productive conversations there. Again, our membership growth was a key highlight. We formally brought in new members and partners into the association, where we also educate and update our members on key activities of the association. What is ANNA doing to reach the market, and how can they replicate that in their local jurisdictions, giving them the tools and information to be able to do that effectively. And then also getting their input on key topics for ANNA and how we should go about in terms of harmonization and implementation, governance frameworks that we're looking at and exploring. So we need the member input, both where decisions are required from a formal governance perspective, but really just to understand the best methodology in order to be able to do that. And it's a great opportunity for them to come together and speak to each other. So that peer networking, learning from each other, sharing ideas, which is super important for stimulating ideas for the future, about future growth, and how they can learn from others' best practices in their own organizations.
And you can't beat the power of bringing people together. And so I'm really curious, so when you think about some of the ideas that were stimulated, can I ask you what's flowing into 2026 that's come from those discussions?
Well, there's obviously a lot of discussions around day-to-day activities, the BAU stuff that needs to get done, where we need to look at continuing to make improvements to better serve the community, to create operational efficiency. It's a huge challenge when you try and bring 125 organizations onto the same song sheet, right? And so that's a great opportunity to be able to do that. So a lot of BAU. Membership growth continues to be a key topic for us. There are still many jurisdictions out there which do not have standards coverage, either because the capital markets haven't grown significantly enough to warrant it, but where there may just not be the awareness that this model exists. And so we're doing a lot of outreach and obviously sharing with our members and using their networks as they may be closer geographically to some of these countries to be able to identify who new potential members are. Looking at, again, the governance frameworks around the National Numbering Agency. So over the last year and a half, we've had a shift in the way that members can come in. So we have this new concept of designated numbering agency. So where the scope of activity is not specific to a national jurisdiction, but instead to a scope of activity. So we had, for example, the Derivative Service Bureau brought in as a member for looking for coverage of OTC derivatives, ISIN for OTC derivatives, and Digital Token Identifier Foundation as a unit of e-trading software as the member responsible for ISINs for crypto assets or tokenized referential instruments. So we're exploring other things where shifts may be necessary in the future. And getting the input from our members there. We have these fabulous breakout sessions where we get really productive in the discussion and generating those ideas so that we can take those back and understand how to implement that into any potential future new models.
Well, can I just ask you on some of those domain areas you were just beginning to touch on there? Can you just expand a little bit more in terms of what's emerging as the topics for 2026?
Yeah, so I think obviously the digital assets kind of blockchain DLT topic continues to be high up as a driver in capital market transformation, whether it's from an efficiency standpoint, technology standpoint, or creating new asset classes. Crypto assets, but you have obviously sustainability, so shifting away from kind of the ESG label to a broader sustainability, and within that things such as carbon credits, which are treated as financial instruments, which is key for the work that we do in the unique identification through standards of financial instruments. AI, I'm sure everybody's aware of, and leveraging that in the work that organizations do. And you're starting to see a convergence of those topics, right? So you take something like carbon credits and tokenization, where people are thinking, okay, these issuance of carbon credits should be done immediately on the blockchain. So how do we leverage the work that we've already done with standards implementation with digital assets and apply that to necessary work in terms of identification of carbon credits and how they're traded and settled and identified.
And I love the idea that there's sort of thinking that comes from different domains, that is, we're creating this sort of learning from each other that's going to make us even smarter, because we know that the work you do really matters, because we're talking about data standards, we're talking about convergence globally, on a global scale as well. So I guess what's your call to action to the industry to get involved?
I think even though the standards are long established, ISIN's been around more than 40 years, CFI and FISIN have existed for some time, and we're obviously seeing new standards and figuring out how to bring them together in a complementary fashion. The landscape continues to evolve, right? There's no finish line. And therefore, it is important that the standards continue to evolve. And one of the key topics that we'll be looking at is the upcoming systematic revision of both the ISIN and the CFI standards as part of the ISO governance process, looking at are there shifts necessary or modifications required in the standard to be fit for purpose for the future. So I would ask all market participants to be involved in those processes, educate themselves on which standards exist and how those can be implemented either at a jurisdictional level or an organizational level to increase the maximum benefit that they provide.
There's a definite clarion call to get involved, and with good reason. It feels like 2026 is going to be an exceptionally busy year for you, Stephan. So I wish you every success. I've been with Stephan Dreyer, who's the Managing Director of the Association of National Numbering Agencies.